What's going on, everybody? How's it going? Who's out there watching? I see there's a couple of you already here. So, hello, Thursday. It's we're back again doing coffee and cigars, and it's Thursday, November 12th. We're getting closer to the end of the year, which is kind of interesting. Gosh, I know everyone's been kind of home, but to me, it's kind of like this COVID's kind of going by fast. I feel like it's going fast, but I'm not stuck at home like everyone, like most people have been. I've been actually going to work every day, driving into the city. So I've been out and about for the most part. So it's been a little bit different for me. Like I know a lot of people going stir crazy at home. I don't really have that stir craziness because I'm been kind of out there on I guess in the front line, seeing people every day and seeing how the city has evolved through this whole COVID times, which is interesting because the whole COVID thing is going back down. Or I guess it's going back up, not down. It's going up. We're crashing down. The plane is crashing, but the numbers are going up or something like that. All right. Anyway, so what are you guys going to be smoking and drinking tonight? Tonight, we've got an interesting coffee. It's called the Hinunauan. And it's a coffee that several years ago I was in Manila with one of our producers out there, this girl by the name of Perez. And she's been a good friend for quite a number of years now. And how this works is that Z works with a group of farmers called the Talaandig. And the Talaandig are these tribal farmers down in southern Mindanao, in the southern part of the Philippines on the island of Mindanao, in an area called Bukidnon, in a very small town called Mirayan. And she's been working with them for 8-9 years, trying to get these local farmers to cultivate better quality coffee. And I remember the very first time I got to see a sample of it. A friend of mine, and this must have been 2014, a friend of mine brought me a sample and he was like, "Hey, what do you think about this coffee? Have a look at it." So there's probably about a kilo's worth of coffee, and he shows it to me, and man, it looks really good, really clean, smells clean, looks fantastic. And so I asked him, "Well, how much coffee is there?" Because I was thinking if there's some quantity I'd like to buy. And he said, "Well, this is the total production." And I was like, "Oh, total production? That's it? Just this is everything?" And so from that very small beginning, Z worked with these farmers and they increased their production, increased their quality. And every year they started having more and more coffee. And they produce a really interesting coffee. It's called the Calasan Sweet. And it's kind of a hybrid it's a strange varietal of the Arabica coffee. And it's more of an elongated bean. It's slightly more elongated. It's a little bit hard to see, but this is going to be a little bit hard to see, but it's slightly, I don't know if we can zoom in on that. I don't know if the camera can see, but anyway, it's an elongated bean, but the flavors are really nice. And so a few years ago, Z and I were talking, we're hanging out, we're having lunch or something, or drinking tea or whatever we're doing, we're just hanging out. And we're just talking coffee, talking stories. And she mentioned something to me about how these farmers, these tribal guys, so if you can imagine, let's say they produce they produce a bunch of coffee, and most of it goes to export. But there's a certain amount of this coffee that's produced every year that's not quite of the quality that you'd export. So that stuff is left over, and you don't send that to export, and and people don't buy it typically, but they use it for themselves. And so she was explaining to me how these farmers utilize the coffee, and she was like, yeah, they put them in batches, they put them in the river. And I was like, what, we'll slow down now. They put them in the river. And so she explained to me this whole process, and I was like so blown away and so fascinated by this whole process of coffee, of processing coffee, that I was like, oh my gosh, what's up, Rusty? Happy Thursday to you. That I was like, we have to do this. So I told Z, I said, okay, let's plan for next year's crop. Let's do this as our production. This strange process or whatever we need to start getting ready. Let's get that together. So this is the deal, right? So these farmers, these Talaandig farmers, they would take the coffee and they would pulp it. And so basically, as we've talked in the past, these coffee beans are seeds, right? They're seeds of the cherry, and there's typically 2 beans per cherry. And so you have to remove them from this thick outer husk. And so by doing that, we call that pulping. So you remove the husk and you have these beans, and these beans are coated in this mucilage that has to be removed. Typically, in most places in the world, or in a lot of places in the world, they do something called wash processing, where they take those mucilage-covered beans, they put them into tanks with water, and they allow the water and the natural yeast to ferment the coffee, and basically that fermentation eats and dissolves away the mucilage, which leaves the bean clean, and then you dry it out and then send it off roast, blah, 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 blah. Finally, so in this case, these tribal guys will take the cherries, they'll pulp them, take the beans, and then put them into woven baskets. And the woven baskets are known as ambong. And they put them in the ambong, and then the ambong they take and they there's a river, right? There's a river in their village, and it's flowing. They take the basket filled with the mucilage covered beans, and they put it in the river and they float it like overnight. So the water or the river runs through it. Actually, that's really what I wanted to call the coffee originally. A river runs through it, but I thought that was a little bit too gimmicky. But anyway, the river does. So as these beans are inside this woven basket and the water is running through them and they're churning, they're rubbing up against they're rubbing against each other, and they're rubbing up against the basket. So it's not a fermentation like you would in a water process, in a wash process. It's actually kind of, this agitation and this scraping action that removes the mucilage. Now here's the problem. This process that they're doing is typically for whatever's left over for their own personal consumption. So it's not typically the best quality coffee that they're using. So really, we have no idea what's going to happen. And to produce high quality coffee takes extra time. And then now we're going to take this coffee that they've taken this really serious time to produce, and we're going to put it through this unknown process, right? So there's a lot of risk there. Like a lot of times you'll have coffee buyers and they'll be like, well, I want you to do this, but we'll pay you more, but we're not going to, that's it. If you produce it and it turns out well, we'll pay you. If not, then we don't want it. In this case, since I'm asking them, I told them, let's do it so that we'll cover the cost of production right away, up front, and make the coffee. And if it turns out great, perfect. That's exactly what we're hoping for. And if it doesn't, well, we'll still take delivery of the coffee and we'll utilize it. Happily, it turned out well. So we're going to brew some of that. We're going to use an AeroPress today. Oh, well, let me put this. We're going to start first with our coffee, right? This time I'm going to use about 18 grams or so of coffee. And this is it's called the Hinunauan. This is the Hinunauan. And this is Rito. Rito is a 70-year-old, he's probably 74 now. It's been a few years since I took this picture. And so he's, over 70, and he's the guy that makes the baskets, right? He weaves these baskets that we're using in this process. So this is the can. It's a 3-ounce tin, so it's pretty rare, and it's definitely on the pricier side, but man, it's fantastic. So we're going to find out. All right. So now we're going to take our coffee. It's 18 grams. Today I'm going to use, and normally the show I grind the coffee beforehand, but I thought, you know what? It's the Christmas season almost, and we got the gift guide released, and so on the channel there's a gift guide if you want. It's down, it's linked down below. So we're going to use the Porlex Mini Grinder 2. This is a Japanese grinder that's using ceramic burrs, right? Ceramic burrs, nicely done, really nice quality grinder, really compact. The best bit about this is if you have the AeroPress, it will fit inside and you can travel with it. Oh, well, very nice. Very nice. Okay, so we're going to take the coffee. I'm using the AeroPress. The AeroPress, this funnel comes with the AeroPress. So I'm going to use that to help funnel the coffee into the grinder. I'm going to put that on there so you can see the coffee's in the grinder. I'm going to cover it. And then there's this handle. Goes on to, fits on top, right? There's this. All right, excellent. So this is the, and now we're just going to grind and grind and grind and grind. Oh, and if you remember when I had that, when I was showing you I'll show you again, but I'll show you this, right? This little twisty thing, this little knob here, you can loosen that and adjust the grind fineness, whether fine or coarse. So I've got it relatively fine. So I'm going to take this, we're going to go back to it. And so the conical ceramic burrs do a real nice job cutting the coffee and making even grinding. Now, to be honest with you, I really hate doing this. I'm not a big fan of hand grinders, mainly because when I was the apprentice, I would be traveling with my mentor and our crew. And since I was the new guy, and it was 6 a.m, I was the guy holding this House grinder and grinding the coffee by hand so we could brew for the morning coffee. And as idyllic as that may sound, I really just thought that sucked. So to this day, I don't have a love for hand grinding. Like a lot of people in the coffee business, they love hand grinding. They have some fascination with it. I don't. I have no fascination with it whatsoever. I know people love it, and I think this is a really high quality grinder. But the whole thing of grinding, actually, it wasn't too bad just now. I finished the grind. It wasn't too long. I'm getting muscle development here. But actually, when you're talking on the show, it actually goes pretty fast. Otherwise, it's pretty slow and quite painful. All right, so now we've got the AeroPress. And this is actually a new AeroPress. This is the AeroPress that I used in the gift guide video. So it's really nice. They've always updated the design, meaning that they've changed the plastics and went from like BPA plastic to non-BPA plastic. All right, so let's separate this. Oh, nice. Nice bright aromas. Tropical notes. All right, so we're just going to take that. We're going to pour the coffee into the AeroPress. Maybe level it out a little bit. The AeroPress also comes with a stirrer. It's pretty simple. At the shop, I actually use a bamboo stirrer because I think that's much nicer. And then it also comes with 300 of these paper. Will it focus? There we go. These paper filters. So there's a pack of 300 with it. So it's like $30. You get all this stuff. It's really quite nice. Now, a lot of people will pre-wet the filter. And the pre-wetting helps it to stick to the mesh here, this locking mesh. I don't think you necessarily, we don't do it because, again, the whole test we did a few weeks back shows we didn't need to do it. All right, so we've got our mug here from Wild Yam Pottery, same one I was using last week. All right, now we're going to take our water, and we're going to add a little bit of water, right? Now it's graduated, and I just kind of put it to the 2. Basically, I'm just letting the coffee get wet, and I'm going to stir. And I'm going to stir for a good 45 seconds or so. Maybe not 45 seconds. When I was competing in the United States AeroPress Championship, I was doing 45 seconds. We're very specific about the time back then. Since that time, well, it comes and it goes. Now we're going to add more water. We'll kind of go almost to the top, but not quite to the top, because if you go to the top, it basically will just, if it kind of overflows, or if it blooms and it overflows and it gets on the edge, then you really got to keep the edge clean, because if it overflows, you're not going to get a good seal, and it just makes more of a mess. So we're just going to take this, put this on top. Now, this way I'm doing it is called the inverted method. There's many ways of doing it. So many people have different ideas on AeroPress brewing. There's no real one way to do it. I did it this way in one. That was about it. Of course, I do think that the way you do it has more to do with the coffee rather than anything else. Like in the U.S. AeroPress Championship in 2012, we use a certain coffee that I think performed very well with this method. But when we went to the World Championships, they gave us a completely different coffee, and this procedure just didn't highlight the coffee as well as somebody else's method. So, your mileage may vary. All right, so we're going to take the cup. I'm going to put it on top, so just so that it doesn't spill, or you help to contain as you turn it over. So we're going to turn it over and then press down. And you can see there's a gap here, right? You can see, you probably can't see. Anyway, there's a gap, and we're just going to press down, and you're going to hear hissing. Let me see if we can hear the hissing. Once you hear the hissing, you know that you've pressed all the liquid out of the puck, and you can stop. Did that come through? There was just that little. All right, so there's always going to be some dripping. So I always kind of tilt it over, shake it off a little bit. Shake it off. All right. Now that only gives you a little bit, it gives you a more concentrated brew. Typically I'm ratioing the coffee for a certain amount. And so I'll typically add the hot water to the level that I'm actually making. All right, and that's pretty much it. That's AeroPress brewing. Yeah. Oh, the hiss did come through. Excellent. Thank you. I'm glad that came through. Excellent. So that's kind of the coffee, and it's still pretty hot. It's juicy. It has like some kind of tropical fruit. Let's see. I want to say durian, but that's not correct. Durian would be much more pungent. It's more of what is that called? It looks like jackfruit, langka. It has that kind of character to it. Definitely juicy. All right, so very nice, very nice. Let's move on with our show notes here. So what everybody drinking tonight, and where are you drinking? Let me know. Put them in the comments. Love to hear about it. So again, tonight's cigar comes from Tobacco Leaf. I picked this up from Tobacco Leaf. It is and Tobacco Leaf is in Jessup, Maryland, right? And so the cigar we're using today is the Plasencia Reserva Original Cortez. And they have 3 bands. I don't know why they do 3 bands. It's very interesting. But this is a Toro size. So the Cortez is a Toro shape. Well, Toro size. So it's 5 3/4 by 56. Now, the interesting thing about this Toro is that it's a kind of a perfecto shape, right? Look, it's got tapered on both ends. I don't know why. I mean, it's interesting. Well, it's getting a little bit of shagginess here. Let me just get a little bit dry. They have 3 bands. It says Plasencia. It has the P's on the top band. And then it says Reserva Original. And Plasencia is an interesting company. They've been around for a long time. They've probably been around, as long as the Nicaraguan cigar industry has been in effect. And for the most part, they've been a manufacturer of cigars for other people. And they've got this beautifully a beautiful and big factory in Esteli. I actually got to tour in 2011. One of our friends one of our friends in Manawa is friends with Nestor Plasencia. And so he was like, yeah, we can go up there and check it out. I was like, oh, all right, let's go check it out. So we got to see the factory and get a tour. And it's really beautiful. It's like a hacienda style. The main building is a hacienda style kind of building, Spanish colonial era, that has a center courtyard with a fountain. Oh, lovely. It's everything you'd want to see in a Spanish era kind of hacienda type thing. All right, so we're going to take the bottom band off, and it's really sticky. Like, why are you going to make it so difficult? It's kind of like a Romacraft band. All right, so that's off, and we need to cut. We need to cut and do our official cutting with our MTX cutter. So I'm going to cut off a bit of it right about there. It's got a bit of a pigtail. Oh, it's looking a little bit on the dry side. Maybe because it's been sitting around for a few weeks. The wrapper is sweet. Sweet cold draw. Very nice initial. The initial impression is quite nice. It's big. 56 is big. Now, what they were saying is that this is a 100% organic cigar that is certified by the Organic Crop Improvement Association, like the OCIA, which I don't really know anything about them, and who knows what they're about. They're Nicaragua based, I imagine. And, organic certified, I don't know, is that important in tobacco? Like, it talked about using 500-year-old pre-Columbian pre-Columbian era farming techniques. But what does that mean? The internet is bereft of details on what any of that means. Why organic is important. What makes pre-Columbian style farming different than today? Does that mean that they're doing it by hand and they're just using, stone adzes to till the fields? I don't know what that means. So evidently they're using farming methods that were, I guess, pioneered by the Nicaragua Indians, which are the native peoples of Nicaragua. That's why Nicaragua's called Nicaragua and Nicaragua. And so I don't know what any of that means. So it's a great story, but how relevant is it to what's actually happening? I'm not clear on that. But anyway, but Plasencia's always been doing organic. Like I remember when I was there in 2011, they were selling this one. They only had one brand for sale back then. And it was a 3-pack of pyramids of their Organica. It was a yellow and blue band. I don't know if it ever came to the United States. I got it because I was at the factory, and I think they even gave it to me. I can't remember. But anyway, it was very mild, easy smoking cigar. This one has a nice fullness, a little bit more robustness. Yeah, there's definitely a sweetness to the cold draw. I'm really interested to see how this is going to taste today. So we're going to light it up. We'll do some match work here. Or not. A little bit uneven on my lighting. Whenever you're lighting like these figurado shape on these tips, you can always kind of see how uneven your lighting is. But initial puffs, very nice starting off. It's got some nice spice to it, good complexity, nice flavors, tobacco, leather. Excuse me. So that after curing this tobacco for this cigar is evidently aged for 3 years. I'm guessing that's in the pilones. I guess that's what they mean. Okay, so here's a little bit of concern. So I've lit the cigar, right? See where this finger is? I can feel heat right there. There's a little indentation in the wrapper right here, and I can feel a little bit of heat. So are we getting tunneling? That would be disappointing. The flavor's nice. Pepper, spice, leather. Good amount of smoke. It's burning really strangely. See, look at that. You see that? So MSRP on this cigar is $9. And yeah, it's burning a little bit uneven. If you look at it. Let's see if it's getting. You can kind of see it. There we go. There we go. There we go. Yeah, not too. It's a little. There's a little bit bump there. See, it's definitely lower there, and I think it's like there's a hole here. It's like there's a hole. It's like there's a hole here, and it's starting to come through the hole. There we go. You can kind of see it there. And there must be a little bit because I'm starting to get a little bit of bitterness on the tongue. Which is probably indicative of an uneven burn inside the cigar. So it started out with gangbusters, really, leather, spice, pepper. But now we got a little bit of bite, a little bit of bitterness. This kind of experience reminds me of let's see. Rusty says, if you see it's burning uneven, will you try and relight the other edges so it'll even out? I was just thinking about that, but I want to see if it will even out. Plus, see, there's this indentation that's right here. Where is it? Yeah, like right here, there's a little bit of heat. There's some heat right underneath my finger here. So it makes me think that there is some tunneling, and so that just by lighting the edges, I don't think will necessarily relieve the tunneling because that's something happening internally. So in this case, I wasn't going to retouch it. If it was just a matter of just me lighting it poorly, like really unevenly, then I would probably touch it up on the other side just to compensate. Like I was smoking a cigar the other day and I was just lighting it poorly. Oh, no, yeah. Oh, that's right. I was down in a week ago. I went down to the Eastern Shore to shoot some videos for the channel. And so on the way back, I picked up some cigars and I'm trying to light it, but I brought this lighter and the first cigar I smoked on the way back was fine. The lighter was perfect. But then the second cigar, the lighter was dying, right? So I basically got to light half of it. And, and I'm trying to put it out the window to blow the air on it and light to keep the cigar lit and hopefully trying to, oh man, it was just disaster. So in that case, when you light half the cigar or part of the cigar, then I would touch it up. But in this case, I'm just going to see how it's going to turn out. Which reminds me, the thing that I always talk about pricing, right? And for me, I've said in the past on other shows where, once cigars start to get in the $13 plus range, I tend to get a little bit more gun shy about them because it's kind of because of things like this. You spend some money on a cigar and, of course it's a handmade product from natural leaves. And so there's always going to be that possibility that the cigar is going to have some kind of problem, which is completely a naturally occurring thing. But as much as you have that in your mind, and you know that's the case. That doesn't lessen the disappointment, And so I'm always like, I'm always at that. If you look here, see, there was a little bit of tunneling, uneven burning right there. There's a little bit of hole. See, that's actually a hole. It's a little bit harder to see, but you can see it better there. That's evened out now, I think. It's evened out or it's just deeper in. So we'll see. But like I was saying, I don't know how you guys feel, but I'm interested, and I'm interested to know what you guys think. Like, when you're trying new cigars, are you trying one, or are you going to try a number of them before you make a final decision whether or not you like them? I tend to be a one cigar kind of person. Like, if I'm curious about a cigar, and that's true, especially as it increases in price point. If there's a cigar that's $18, if I'm going to buy it, I'm probably going to buy one, and I'm going to hope that it's going to be a fantastic experience. And if it's not, I mean, I get it. It may not be to my palate, It's like a steak dinner, right? You go to a steak restaurant, you're going to spend what, $100, $150? I don't want to have to go there 4 times to figure out that it's not as quite as much as I'd like it. I'd like to know right away. So this cigar has gone from the real punchy spiciness and complexity at the very outset, and then as this weird burning. You can see the weird burning, right? Can really see that there. I see it's more difficult to understand, to see that in here, but there's a really kind of weird channeling that's happened in that part there. And we're reaching the point where that hot spot, that soft spot, we're getting close to it here. So there was that moment where it turned a bit bitter, and I think that was as it was tunneling, but it's mellowed, it's smoothened out, and it's mellowed, like that like punchy spice at the beginning has smoothened out into more, I guess, cereal is the way to describe it, grains, but sweet grains. And George, how you doing? Welcome back again. Thanks for tuning in. So George is saying, new cigar, I'll buy 2 or 3 just in case one has construction issues. Yes, that's a good idea. That's always a good idea. There's definitely a sweetness on the tongue that's coming out now. It's smoking pretty good. The burning is still, if you look here, the burning is still a bit on the uneven side. So that's continued. I don't know if that's because, I'm thinking that's because of, like, there's still a soft spot here. So I'm thinking that's because of construction issues with this particular individual cigar. Yeah, not bad. And Tony's back again. Oh, Tony, you're in PA this time, not at Bud's house, huh? All right. In the bunker, PA, having a La Mission. That's the one from Tatuai, right? Atelier. And Diet Cherry Pepsi, of course. George is outside. Oh yeah, it's kind of chilly. It's a little bit chilly. I did turn the heater on in the room today because it was starting to drop in temperature. It wasn't too bad this afternoon, through most of the day. Well, actually, it did get a little bit cool. Like at the shop, I keep the doors open, so it was getting a little bit cooler after noon. After 12 noon, it started to get a little bit cooler. And then I went home for a bit, and around 3 o'clock, then when I came out to here around 5 o'clock, almost close to 5 o'clock, man, it really got chilly. I was like, oh man, it's chilly. Like I wanted to put a jacket on. So the cigar is kind of, it's still unevenly burning, but it's still coming along. I mean, yeah, this trend of this uneven burn here is still continuing. And I see Rusty got some of the few petite Coronas he mentioned from CI. That's good. Have you smoked those petite Coronas yet, Rusty? So I looked up some other people, some other groups on the internet about the Plasencia Cortez, and cigarscore.com gave it a 3, which is their own scoring system, and the 3 in their scoring categories means that the cigar they found was fair but not special. They would smoke it again if their go-tos were not available. So it's a kind of a middle of the road kind of score. I think their whole scoring system is 1 to 5. They noted, and so their review was from July of this year, and they noted the burn was fairly uneven. Like, that's kind of what we're seeing here. It's a little bit uneven on the burn. The flavor, they said flavors were light. I can kind of see that. The draw is good on this. The draw is good. But they noted light on the flavors. And while we had that really tremendous, punchy spice, it is starting to, it has mellowed and it's smooth. What they did say, what Cigar Score and Half Wheel both said in their reviews, that they thought this would be a good cigar to go with coffee. And so let's see. Now this coffee is a lot more lighter and a little bit more brighter than most coffees that I serve here at Spro. Kind of similar to last week's coffee, but I think this cigar would go better with more of a chocolatey coffee, like a Esteli or something. This is nice, but I think this cigar, this lighter character, creaminess of the cigar would go well with like a more chocolatey morning coffee. Like the Esteli blend would be actually very good with this, I think. But yeah, the smoke is very good. The draw is very even, very consistent, really nice. Enjoyable so far. And then let's see. Let's see what else we have on our notes here. Okay, stick together. Oh, I also looked at Blind Man's Puff. So Blind Man's Puff, their review is from July 2020. They did the Robusto, which is the smaller size than this, and they gave it a 91. They said it was medium strength with flavors of salt, cherry, earth, and it had a tight, but their Robusto had a tight draw that burned hot, and they also said it was a good cigar for coffee. However, their rating was a 91. So that's it, like there it is. So we've got, going back to the cigar scoring thing we talked about the last few times, we have 91 from Blind Man's Puff. But I would think that a 90 plus cigar would be really something. This is nice. Now, Half Wheel gave it 85, and I think that's probably more in line with what I'm thinking. And, so what's it again? Cigar Score gave it a 3. So 3 would be, I guess, kind of that 85. It's a nice cigar, just not banging. I would think 91 would be a banging. So in 2017, when the cigar first came out, Half Wheel did a review, but it was on their Corona. And they said that they said organic wasn't, so because this is certified organic tobacco, And I don't know what that means, like it's certified. Are they, but if you're really going for organic certification, like in agriculture with coffee and with other products, there's a whole chain of custody that you have to manage in order to really call your product 100% organic, which means that your tobacco would have, I imagine the tobacco would have to be separated from all of the tobaccos throughout their entire process. Now, Plasencia is a big enough company and with big facilities, so they could very well be doing that, but that's an unknown at this point. But Half Wheel noted that the organic aspect of it wasn't immediately noticeable, and I don't know if you would even notice something being organic. You're smoking it. Does organic really mean anything? I mean, does it make a difference? And in many respects, does organic even mean much? Like we buy a lot of things that are organic milk, organic meats, organic coffee, even. And for me personally, it's like organic is nice, and certainly there are benefits to organic processing, like with coffee. But personally, as a person, a coffee buyer, I don't really worry too much organic certification. If it's certified organic, that's fine. However, we're not processing the coffee as organic, meaning that if we were doing organic processing and roasting here, we would have to, keep a whole chain of custody and sequestration of the coffee throughout the entire process, until the moment it gets into the bag. Then we could say it was organic. But until then, you're not really gaining anything. And organic, just because it's organic, doesn't necessarily mean that the flavor is better. It just means it was processed a certain way. So I don't know, what Half Wheel was thinking when they're like, well, it's not immediately noticeable that it's organic. Well, it wouldn't be necessarily. Like if we take organic meats, or something, I imagine you could be organic, but if you're not handling the beef in a certain way, let's say beef, for example, cow, if the cows aren't living a certain way and eating a certain meal or a certain type of foods, you're not going to have the same result in the quality of the meat, the flavor of the meat. Yeah, so now we're really into it. We're definitely getting into the second third. The flavor has mellowed. Like that spice is gone. It's more, I guess, as Half Wheel described, it's more like cereal, cornflakes, maybe a little bit of Wheaties. There's more pleasant grain tones rather than anything else, but it's still smooth. It's still pleasant. So George is saying there are leaves raised from seed to cigar. I don't really care about organic. It's a fine handmade product. If it tastes good, then that's enough for me. That's exactly, I feel the same way. Yeah, I'm not clear on what the advantage would be to have organically produced tobacco over the regular tobacco. And is it a question of like for example, let's say to compare to, let's say, coffee production, right? Coffee production in Mexico. For most of Mexico, coffee production in most of Mexico is basically organic. The methodologies that they're using, the lack of fertilizer, is pretty much organic processing, the growing. However, they don't have organic certification because basically it costs a lot more money, and a lot more resources than a lot of these farmers have. So you have a lot of organic processing or growing that's happening. So products that are produced organically, they're just not certified, and there is a whole thing about organic certification that in the 60s, there's a whole group of farmers in the United States that were trying to get organic. They want to do organic. That was so important for them. They want to be without fertilizer, and the USDA beat them up at every turn until the point in the late 70s, early 80s, where ConAgra and other large-scale industrial agriculture companies realize that there's a market now for organic products. They could make it mainstream. They could make it more profitable. So they got the USDA to create organic certification and legitimize it, and then built upon it an entire structure that exists today that makes it much more difficult for a small farmer to be organically certified because of the whole chain of custody and all the records and everything that needs to be done. So a big corporation can do it. It's kind of like how from what I've been hearing, it's kind of like how the big four cigar companies have been pushing the FDA to regulate cigars because they can afford to comply with regulation. Hopefully that pushes everybody else out. And so Tony says that Plasencia has been trying the organic cigar since the 90s. Remember the Reserva? Yeah, the Reserva Organica. That's the one that I had, the pyramid shape that came with that yellow, blue, and orange band. It was very mild. It was a very mild, nicely done, but just kind of mild, not too, relatively nondescript, I thought. Like, for example, with going back to the ag thing, they were telling me once that you could have, let's say this is a big field, right? This is a big field, and this is a big field of normal agriculture, right? Let's say whatever, corn, for example. Let's say this is 10,000 hectares or 10,000 acres. Well, you would fertilize this entire thing, right? Well, the big ag would carve out this section in the middle, designate that organic. And they wouldn't use any fertilizer. They would use no pesticides, and none of those insecticides. So they would have this in the center of this big field that they sprayed. So all around here, they would pesticide, but none of the organic part, and that would qualify as organic. Oh, pretty good way to work. Now, don't take my word for it. You can look it up. But that's what was explained to me years ago when I was really getting more into the regional local food scene, learning about all that kind of stuff. It's really fascinating, the whole farm to table kind of movement and some of the things behind that. So we're rolling along, and it's holding together well. I mean, even though there was that weird bump here in the front, you really can't see it in the screen, but it's holding together pretty well. Construction is good. The draw is still really nice. The amount of smoke is still very good. It's just a mellow grain flavor. Nothing to complain about. Just now there's starting to be a little bit of black pepper to develop, right? It's kind of like, if you can imagine, this is the flavor profile, right? This is all grain, smooth, kind of mellow, medium, nondescript, and then at the very bottom, a little bit of black pepper now, a little bit of black pepper just starting out. Yeah, I can see what these guys are saying, there's talk about the coffee. I can see how you could enjoy this on a morning cigar. Let's say the morning starting, the sun is coming out, you've got your coffee, right? You're sitting there looking out on your deck and pondering the day, wondering when COVID's going to come and get you. Just sitting there with your coffee and your cigar. Yeah, that's not bad. That's not bad. So George saying quality cigars still perform well even if construction isn't perfect. Love self-correcting. Yeah, it's smoothened out, it's evened out. That suspicion of like tunneling that I had is now gone. That's not even there. So yeah, it's really well done. I mean, their Plasencia is really a top-notch kind of place. The factory is really beautiful. They've got a lot of rollers. And I don't know if you're gonna know about this, but after they roll the cigar, so after they press the molds, they take out the molds, they put the wrapper on it, and then they put them into the 50 count bundles, and then they store them. Where they store them is what's called the escaparate, right? And the escaparate at Plasencia is massive. Like if you've ever been to like Baron Steakhouse in Tampa and you go to their wine cellar, I mean, it's massive. It's like stacked to the roof and it's like all across. It's like that at Plasencia. You walk in these, it's like multiple rooms stacked. And then let's see, the ceilings are like, it's just 12-foot ceilings. It's stacked floor to ceiling. Then as you're walking down the hallway through the rooms, there's, shelving above your head, kind of creating a frame of a door, a passageway. And then it's all filled. It's filled. It's wild. It's just wild. They also use one of those. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but the smoke-o-meter. I guess it's the inhalometer. It's a device where they take the cigar and they push it up against it. And Tony, I think you've seen this because I understand that Perdomo uses it at their factory, where they basically put up to the machine and it sucks through to make sure that there's a correct rate of flow or of pressure. They use that in their factory as well. And actually, the day that I was there, and I don't know whoever this went. I don't know who this cigar eventually ended up with because they didn't tell us because it was a little bit of a secret project at the time they were rolling and putting it together. But these rollers were putting together this cigar where they were like big Toro shaped cigars that had a camouflage pattern. So they were taking, the Colorado, they're using some of the Maduro, they're using all these different shades of tobacco, and they're breaking them up into like pieces, and they're gluing them like a camouflage, like a woodland camouflage pattern on the cigar. Yeah, maybe I don't know if you guys have seen that, but I've just, like I said, when they were showing it to us, it was for an undisclosed client at the time. I don't know if it was ever made it to market. I think they were, now years later, I don't recall if it was just a test run or it was actual production run, but I don't know if any of you have seen that. That's kind of interesting. All right, so now it's getting pretty long. It's starting to bend. It's bending. There we go. Starting to bend, right? So I'm thinking I'm going to knock it off. Yeah, we'll knock it off. Oh, there we go. I'm going to try to pull this band off. Again, they're putting bands on like Roma. I like to save my band, so I don't really want to tear it and destroy it. Now, I don't know if you save your bands, but I was just thinking about this the other day. I save them. I don't know why. Well, I mean, I'm saving them also because one of our friends, Eric, his fiance is, wants them to make mosaics, but I've been saving them, and I don't know why I save them. I mean, like, I like the idea of saving them. I like the idea of making a mosaic with it. I like the idea of having a mosaic of the cigars that I love the most made, but I don't know where I'd put it. I don't know why we do this. All right, let's take this last one off. This like wedding band kind of. All right, we're not gonna pull it off. Oh, okay, I'm gonna pull it off like a Roma one. Okay, good. So, how's your guys' week been? What's been happening? I checked the news before I got on, and it looks like Sinead O'Connor is entering treatment for trauma and addiction. I didn't read much about it, celebrities and their trauma and addictions. That's kind of old hat. One of the Bachelor in Paradise contestants is now pregnant. And rapper Moss 3 was shot to death in broad daylight. I'm not too familiar with who Moss 3 is, actually, to be honest. But the real big news in this week is that Justin Bieber finally made his debut at the Country Music Awards. Did any of you catch that? I'm not sure what Bieber would be doing on CMA, but I'm sure he has big fans there because he has fans everywhere. And I don't know how you guys are, I don't know how it is on your Facebook or whatever, but on my Facebook, I've noticed this past week, it seems like a lot of people are making big announcements about moving, that they're like, I'm leaving Facebook and I'm going to Parler. Or there's another one called MeWe. And I don't know. I don't know what the deal is, but these guys are making a big deal about it. They're like, I'm leaving. All right, good. I don't really understand why, but okay. And then the next day, I'm leaving. Well, if you keep saying you're leaving, but you haven't left, are you ever going to leave? And George is saying Cigar Authority got kicked off Facebook. I saw I was listening to Cigar Authority. That's a good point. I was listening to Cigar Authority, and I was like, and they were talking about in the last episode that they got kicked off. I mean, was there actual Cigar Authority page kicked off? Actually, I never looked that up. Let's see. Maybe I can run it. Finally, last week switched from running this live stream. Instead of using wireless, I put it on an Ethernet cable, right? All right, so let's see here. And so using the Ethernet cable seems that it's more stable, and I'm getting a more solid connection. So hopefully me going onto Facebook at this very moment isn't destroying the feed. If it is, let me know, and I'll stop. All right, so it looks like the Cigar Authority is still alive on Facebook, but I did, yeah, George, you're right. They were saying on Facebook on their show that it was Mr. Jonathan and Dave Garofalo said that their personal pages got kicked off. Now, I don't know what they might. I don't really know Garofalo. I don't really follow him at all on Facebook, and only recently did Mr. Jonathan friend me on Facebook because we were both on the Weasel Team 6 page, right? And so kind of ran into him there. Plus, I ran into him in real life. That's a whole nother story. But then on the show they were talking about how they got kicked off, but they didn't say why. And I asked someone else about it, and they were like, "Well, I don't think they know why either." But I don't know. Does Facebook kick you off without telling you why? Because the couple times that I have been, penalized by Facebook for a 24-hour, what do they call that? No, what do we call it for children when you're is it in the corner? Are we put in the corner? Yeah. When you're like put down for 24 hours, they tell me why. They told me specifically why. Like, this post you made this post, and we're penalizing you. So I can only imagine that both of them were told by Facebook that they were penalized for whatever reason. And based on what I've heard over the past week, with certain people that I know that are like, I'm leaving for Parler and we, whatever it's called. I'm guessing that they were posting some pretty, you know, extreme or radical stuff. I mean, I guess I don't know. I don't really follow them personally, so I don't really know. And so Tony says, I did not see Bieber. However, I did find a YouTube video of Mad World by the One Tears for Fears guy and his daughter. Oh, Mad World. I'll have to check that out. Kurt Smith and his daughter are not rolling. Okay. I don't know the difference between the two. So if we go back to the Tears for Fears days, is which one of the two has the more baby face with the curly hair? Is that Kurt or Roland? Kurt. I'm thinking Kurt. I don't know. Ah, Roland. Okay. That makes sense. Well, I guess. So evidently the COVID-19 is getting worse, and we evidently in Maryland we now have over a thousand people in the hospital, which is the same rate that we're having back in June. So that's probably not a good thing. I do know some people that have been exposed that got it. I know people that have died. I'll try to wear the mask. It's a good idea to wear a mask, I think. How much shows have we been watching lately? You know, I was just past week. I read about this show called For All Mankind. I know I think it's been out for quite a while now. And I think it's on Apple. Is that right? So I've been kind of watching. I watched the first couple episodes, and I don't know if you know about this, but For All Mankind is a story about. It's a fictionalized story made by Ronald Moore, who is the creator of the Battlestar Galactica reboot, which is really the reason why I wanted to watch it, because I'm a big fan of Battlestar, both the original and the 2004 version. So I wanted to check it out. And so basically the idea is that the story of For All Mankind is, what if Russia beat the United States to the moon, right? What would happen? And so basically there was Apollo 10. And so between Apollo 10 and Apollo 11, the Russians send cosmonauts and land on the moon. And that creates a big demoralization of NASA and all the people. And Nixon is all pissed off about it. And so Nixon wants to kick it up a notch and kick out Wernher von Braun. And now I've only seen 2 episodes, so I don't really know what's happening. So that's the first thing. And then in the second episode, the Apollo 11 goes to the moon. And basically at the same time, was it after? No, they sent Apollo 11. Apollo 11 almost crash lands on the moon. And then, what's his name? Armstrong and, damn it. How can you forget this? Michael Collins, Neil Armstrong, and I don't know. They basically almost crash land on the moon, but they make it, and then they get off, and then Apollo 12 goes up. During Apollo 12's sojourn to the moon, the Russians send more cosmonauts out and trump the United States again by sending a woman to the moon. So now that's where we are. That's where I am in the story. And so I think my understanding is that this story is really kind of hypothesizes that if Russia beat us to the moon, then that puts our space program into overdrive, And we don't just like when we did our moon thing, like basically we got to the moon and everybody else just kind of gave up. And so we gave up. And then we created we basically created a space going SUV with the space shuttle and just kind of, had a big pickup truck that took things up and back. And we didn't really go anywhere. So I think from what little I've read on this, and I've tried not to read too much, but like, I think the understanding is that, okay, Buzz Aldrin, thank you very much, Rusty, is that we're going to go even further. Like, I think they were talking in the story, they were talking about, we're going to go to Saturn, we're going to go to the asteroid belt. And I was thinking, asteroid belt. So this is how the Expanse starts, right? So if you're watching the Expanse, we colonize Mars, and then we also send a bunch of people to mine the asteroid belt. Could this be the beginning? Is this all intertwined? Makes you wonder. So Tony says, La Revolution on Netflix. Oh, I'll have to check that one out too. And George says the new miniseries about abolitionist John Brown starts Sunday. Oh, I thought it. I thought it already started. I've seen a bunch of like blurbs about it with what's the guy's name that's the star? And I thought that was already out. I wanted to look that up, but good. Sunday I want to check that out. Yeah, I didn't really know until I started seeing those news about that show. I didn't really know much about John Brown. All I knew about John Brown was that it was the name of that store on Falls Road. I figured it was some dude that lived in the area that called John Brown that opened a store called John Brown and made it a general store. But obviously, I'm not well versed in history. But abolitionists, that's a good thing. So George says he was a little extreme. It looked like it. It looks like he's he looks like he's taking the Batman approach. I haven't. So as Rusty's asking, anybody with HBO seen the Chernobyl miniseries? I do have it. I just haven't watched it. I've heard it's really good. My friend, she watched it. She's actually from the Ukraine, and she really loved it. But I've heard that's really good. There's a great scene that's on YouTube that I've seen where they're basically Chernobyl has melted down and the whole core is exposed, and these guys are like measuring it. They're like, oh yeah, it's only 1,500 roentgens. They're like, no, dude, it's 15,000 roentgens, which is like instantaneous death. Yeah, man, those guys really gotten wiped out. I mean, trying to go in and put the fire out, they would just die after that. I mean, it was so severe. And then they just encased it in concrete, and they just rolled they built a sarcophagus around it, and now they built this whole containment facility that they rolled over it. That's one place I would like to go visit, Pripyat and Chernobyl. I would really like to go see that. That would be really, really fascinating. Like when there was that game that came out, this I guess it was a PlayStation 4 game, and I don't recall the name, but basically it was like a Call of Duty. I think it was Call of Duty, but basically the setup for this one version of it was in Pripyat. So you would be in Pripyat, and they basically laid it out with the whole carnival setup and all the schools. It was really I found it really fascinating. And I think it's really fascinating that wildlife has returned to Pripyat and Chernobyl, where, and there seems that the wildlife is thriving despite the fact that it's radiated. I don't know if they've explained that, but I've seen a few videos on YouTube where these guys go and they check it out. And I was like, wow, that'd be really, I would like to see that. I would also like to see something closer to us. Like there's that town of Centralia in Pennsylvania. I think it's like a 4-hour drive from Baltimore. And I don't know if you've heard about it, but basically I think there's only like 20 people living in this town still, like just stalwarts that refuse to move. But Centralia is basically, there's a mine, there's a coal mine that is there. And somehow years ago, maybe it could be 50 years ago already, where the miners somehow started a fire in the mine, and it's still burning to this day. The coal that's in the veins of coal under this town are still on fire. And like, I think there's like heat and like, but basically it caused the town to be complete. It caused them to abandon the town. And I just think that would be fascinating to see. Maybe if I go there, I don't have to wear a mask. Although, depending on how it is, I might need to wear SCBA type of gear to breathe. So what do you guys have for dinner tonight? For me, I just made some roasted chicken chicken thighs with some rice and some vegetables. I had these frozen peas and carrots and corn, green beans. Just tossed them in with the roasted chicken and let it cook in the fats and juices while it's in the oven. Not bad, not bad. I've got a whole bunch of like these spice mixes, like mesquite. This one mesquite mix that I got from McCormick. I got a gift pack from McCormick many years ago, and I found it, so I've just been trying to go through all of this to utilize it and like, because we all have like cupboards that must have lots of spice mixes, and we never use them. So I'm trying to go through all of mine slowly, but I think that's a good way to do it. I was thinking about risotto though. Risotto with seared scallops. I think that would be nice. Maybe that's tomorrow. What are you guys cooking? Let me know. Let me know in the comments. And then earlier today, I was thinking, you know what? I would like to make pie. Like my nephew likes pumpkin pie, so I was like, oh, maybe I should make pumpkin pie. And then I was thinking apple pie. A couple years back, I went to this event at the Brian and I went to this event called Southwestern New Mexico University, whatever, Alumni Association. They basically had a hatch chili roast. So basically you go to these places and they get the hatch green chilies from New Mexico, and they put them in these big wire mesh drum roasters with open flame, and they roast. It's fantastic. It's really, really awesome. So but they had this big potluck, and so all the alumni came, and this one woman, she made this pie, and I don't know who it was, because there was a few pies, but I just happened to eat this one pie, and it was a green chili apple pie. So apple pie with green chilies in it, hatch green chilies. And it was the most phenomenal pie I've ever had. Like the crust was it was a crust like I've never had the texture before, like beautiful flake and beautiful flavor and structure. It was perfect. It was perfection. It was like the best pie I've ever had. And so I believe it's made with lard. And so, yeah. So Rusty says, I'm already brainstorming for Thanksgiving. And Tony slept with hot dogs tonight. Those two things are things I've been thinking about lately. Like a friend of mine, and Tony, this guy, Tyrone Willoughby, on his Facebook, we're talking about this. He posted this post about pork and beans, right? I was like, oh my God, he should have posted pork and beans with like sliced hot dogs. I was like, oh my gosh, man, that just sounds wonderful. So I have been thinking about it. I was thinking about, I'm just going to go buy the Campside or whatever that brand is, like the bean. But I was thinking, why? If I'm going to eat pork and beans, I might as well make it, right? Because, so I had this thing a few months ago. I had this whole thing about chili. And I was like, oh man, I need to have some chili. I got this taste for chili. So I went out, I bought this big can of Hormel chili. And I bought some cornbread mix. And I made it and put all in a skillet. And I made the cornbread. I put the dollops of cornbread on top, and I baked it all off. Man, it was terrible. I mean, it is what it is. Hormel chili, but it was just that industrial, like So just not exciting. So when I was thinking about pork and beans, I was thinking, I'm going to do that. Oh, no. But then I remember the chili thing. I was like, oh, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to make it. So finally, I got some Frankfurters and some, I got Wieners, not Frankfurters. Wieners are the shorter ones. Frankfurters are shorter than the Wieners. Same mix, but just different size. And then I also got some Binkert's bacon. And then just today I picked up some beans, dried beans, at the Amish market. So that's coming up soon. I got some molasses. Got some molasses to make some brown sugar. Because I've decided that I think I'm going to get away from buying brown sugar. I'm just going to make it, right? Because basically all brown sugar is you take sugar, they take the refined sugar, the white granulated sugar, and they mix in molasses into the sugar. And that's why it's always kind of dry. That's why it's always kind of wet and sticky, right? Whereas something like Demerara sugar is the raw sugar that the molasses has not been refined out of it. So I've decided that I'm just going to go and make my own brown sugar from now on. And Rusty's saying, Hormel chili, I'd rather drive to Wendy's. That's a good idea, too, Wendy's. Buy chili. Their chili's good. I like their chili. Yeah, if you ever go to Hawaii, there's a place in Hawaii called Zippy's. It's kind of like the Denny's of Hawaii. And they have chili. I think their chili is just fantastic. Like, I used to be able to find frozen Zippy's chili in these little pouches that you would like microwave or boil. I used to have stacks of them in the freezer at home, but they're long gone. And hope no finger in the Wendy's. Yeah, that's never. It's a hot dog with a bone. Yeah. So what do you think? What are you thinking for Thanksgiving? You said you're thinking Thanksgiving, Rusty. What are you thinking about? I was just thinking about that because my sister-in-law was like, "Hey, what are we going to do for Thanksgiving?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know." And she said, "We could just order, right? Like Manor Tavern up in Moncton has this whole meal of like a whole turkey with a bunch of sides for like $2.25." And she asked me about it, and I was like, she said, "Oh, were you planning on cooking?" And I said, "Well, I really hadn't even thought about Thanksgiving yet. Like I just had a thought of last week about, should I get a turkey? What if we do a turkey? How should I do it? How should I brine it?" And because typically for me, my family, we usually go to my cousin's house in Hanover, PA, but that's not happening this year. So we're gonna make our own. And so I haven't really thought about it. That's part of what I was thinking about with the pumpkin pie. So Tony says the bean recipe I have calls for beer, soy sauce, and French onion soup. Oh, you mean French onion soup like in a can? Or you make the soup first and then utilize it as part of the beans? Yeah, I've been looking at some recipes online for pork and beans. I haven't decided which one I'm going to try. But I went with the fancy ingredients because might as well go. Might as well. So Rusty's saying, send the whole family because everyone's scared of COVID. It's only Amy and her folks. I'm going to buy a turkey and break it down into 4 cuts, 2 breasts and 2 leg thighs. Oh, nice. No, that's good. Cookie part different. Yeah, that's a good way to do it. I do, but I do like that. I've had a few times when we've made turkey whole, and I don't recall now. It's been several years since I've done one, and like the times that I've done it, it was perfect. Like beautiful, like beautifully juicy throughout. Like the kind of turkey you just want to eat for days on end, and you just don't get tired of it. Like the dry turkey, you don't really want to eat it at all. Maybe making a soup or something, but yeah. So I don't. I was thinking about brining for a couple of days, and then drying in the refrigerator for a couple of days. But I have no idea at this point. I have no idea. So the powder, the French onion soup powder, and then that goes to be that's good. That's good. Well, it was a couple years back where Rusty made the turducken, And thank you, Versi, because he made me one, and I had it. That was fantastic. We really loved it. I thought that was really cool. I've always kind of thought about making one for myself, but I just never. I was always lazy to debone everything. So I don't know where I'm going to go this year for the Thanksgiving, or what direction we're going for Thanksgiving. My cousins that are all here, they were talking about, they were planning for the 21st to do this whole like Filipino cooking showdown, right? We were supposed to go to my one cousin's house on the 21st, and everyone's going to make a version of their Filipino adobo. And at first, I was well, actually, even still to this day, like we just decided that we're going to postpone it because of the whole COVID thing until like next year. And the idea of, and so I don't know if you know adobo, but for those who are not familiar, adobo is basically, it's either typically pork or chicken or both, and it's kind of the basic concept is a braise of the protein in soy sauce and vinegar with black pepper and bay leaf. Those are the major ingredients. Like some people will put onions, some people will put garlic, some people will put other esoteric ingredients like coconut milk, and then the ratio of soy sauce to vinegar will vary depending on the person, the family, the region of the country they're from. I mean, it's one of those dishes in Filipino culture that's so ubiquitous to the culture, but it's so dependent on where you're from to how it actually turns out. So we were all supposed to get together and make this adobo showdown. And actually, for me, until this day, I was kind of like, well, I don't know if I want to eat all adobo. That seems a bit ridiculous. But we're going to find out later. And I guess we're still going to do that. And adobo throwdown, that's how families hit. Mm, that's true. That's true. I think that would be an interesting cookbook, though. Like if you were to make a cookbook of Filipino adobos from the different regions of the Philippines, I think that would be really fascinating. Like every time I have adobo places, it's really different. Like there's a buddy of mine who's his name is Ray Eugenio. He's a chef. I've got to know him. He was the chef, the executive chef at Roy's Hawaiian restaurant in Baltimore. The chain that's owned by Fleming's and or Outback. I guess Fleming's and Outback. And he was their chef for many years. That's where I got to know him because we used to go there quite a lot. So I got to know him pretty well. So recently he just opened a restaurant in the Whitehall Mill in Hamden, where he's doing Filipino food, and he does this chicken adobo that's heavy on the vinegar, but he braises it like severe braise to the point where like you're eating it and the meat is shredding as you're picking through it. But not just that, but it's braised to the point where the bones are starting to like the bones are soft, like you could chew them and eat them. So Tony says he's going to do herb butter under the skin of the turkey. Yes, that's a great way to go. A little compound butter, that's good. And then Rusty says one of the leg thighs I'm going to bone out, roll in sous vide with Ras El Hanat spice. Oh, that's interesting. Rusty, what kind of a sous vide are you using? What device are you using? The Polyscience or one of the other ones? Yeah, and Tony says like Italians with gravy. Yes, exactly. And gravy is brown. The Anova. Okay. So did you see that? Okay, so I don't know if you've seen this, but I saw because Kenji Lopez had got one, and he was showing his unboxing of this. But Anova has that new, basically the combi oven. They have a combi oven for home. It's like $600. I think it's a half sheet size oven, so it's a tabletop oven, probably about that big, but it's a combi oven. So you fill it with water. So it's like a combi oven for $600. I was like, I was really thinking I should go buy one. I would love to have one of those. So for those who are not familiar, the combi oven basically is an oven that uses steam as well. So you can do very controlled cooks with it. And mean, they're fantastically expensive for commercial use. But if Innova has one that's for the home, I mean, that just seems like that might be a good way to do the turkey in the Innova. Right, so the cigar is starting to lose its steam, meaning it's starting to go out. It's still very mild. It's still very much a cigar that's, that whole grain, that cereal type of thing, with still a little bit of black pepper, still enjoyable. All right, so now we're going to relight. We're going to use Cirillo style of just around the edges to see if I've got this mass flame from the 4,000 phaser. But yeah, so if you're in Baltimore, I think that Whitehall Mill Filipino restaurant called he calls it Heritage. That's really been very good food. Fine dining. He actually takes a fine dining approach to the Filipino food, so it's not as rustic as we're used to eating at home. It's definitely a little bit more elevated. And also in that space, it's kind of one of those like market style. Like, it's kind of like a food court kind of place, right? That whole new school of food court, like the Our House here in Baltimore. And there's a bunch of other shops there. There's a coffee place. There's a cheese shop. There's a black-owned, female-owned bakery that's been really popular. And I can't remember the name, but it's been super popular. There's always a line there. And they do nice. It's really kind of like home, really nicely done home-style baking. That whole technique that Cyril was talking about, where cigars going out and you just light the edges, that's working really well. I've done that, like 2 times on the show. It's turned out, it really does work. I'm really surprised. I think I might have said this on the show before, but that guy really thinks about cigars, like the physics of cigars, like much deeper than I ever thought about it. So the coffee is still good. The Hinunauan is a really nice coffee. It goes well. It doesn't pair quite as well as last week's pairing. And the last week's pairing was like, wow, this is just good. And then the red sauces from Italy are really interesting. Like years ago, when I was living in Hawaii, this friend of mine got a job working for this restaurant. This woman owned this restaurant, real small kind of Italian place, and they showed me how to make their sauce. And it was really great. And that was like 20 some years ago. So it's totally lost the mind. Like there was olive oil, there was, I guess, San Marzano tomatoes, there was tomato paste, and it was super simple. Like it was like wickedly simple. Like maybe some basil. I don't even know. I'm guessing now. I'm totally just hypothesizing what it is. But it was really, really. And like I'd always thought that you had to cook the sauce, the gravy for a long time. But she was like, no, we just mix it all, heat it up a little bit, done. I was like, you don't need to cook it for like hours. Like, no, we don't do that. It's like, all right. But her food was really, really good. Yeah, I've been thinking about like trying to make more of that. Like, I typically do bolognese kind of sauces because that's really what I like a lot. And I've started making my own pasta. So, with the whole, but I've been hand rolling it and hand forming it. That's really been quite difficult. Difficult in the fact that you're trying to get the right thickness for the noodle, difficult. And then I tried over the summer. I was trying to do hand pull noodles. You watch the hand pull guys, those Chinese guys, and they pull, they twist, they hit it, they turn it, they pull, they twist, they turn it. It looks quite simple. It's simple. It's a simple way to do it, but man, just like anything that's simple but not easy. Disaster. Mine was disaster. I need to practice. And Tony says some of the best things are super simple. Absolutely. I've always found that the simple stuff is the harder thing to do. It's much more difficult to do simple than complex because, with more complex, I find that there's more to mask your mistakes. But when the ingredients are very simple, like with coffee making, it's water and coffee. So your mistakes are, when you're doing simple stuff, your mistakes are super apparent. It's just like the meat, you do meat with salt and pepper or just salt. And then you really have to have great quality and great technique, because otherwise there's nothing. Like you can put A1 and you can put like Montreal and then A1, and that kind of covers up your sins. But when you're not. So have you guys been following The Mandalorian? So Mandalorian comes out on, I think, Saturdays. Mandalorian has now 2 episodes. Is that right? 2 episodes? Yeah, I think the third one's coming out this week. And a friend of mine brought this topic up on her Facebook. She was like, has anyone thought about how the baby Yoda is eating the woman's children? I was like, oh, God. And I hadn't seen the episode at this point. And I was like, oh, my God, what is happening there, right? And I was wondering, like, okay, we have this idea of Baby Yoda, right? Baby Yoda is this cute little thing, and, it's all really nice. But, like, how do we know that Baby Yoda, this baby, whatever creature of Yoda's race, isn't the next Darth Vader? Maybe he's the next Darth Vader, right? So you're taking care of so the Mandalorian is protecting this little baby that could be the next terror of the galaxy. Maybe it would have been better to let him die. But that wouldn't be Star Wars. So Tony says, I learned how to make red sauce from Mario, that exchange student we hosted. Oh, yes. I remember that guy. Huh. So what's in the red sauce then? And did you cook it a lot? Do you have to cook it a long time? Our friend Eric has that guy that works from from Italy. I'm interested to see how his wife does cooking, because it sounds like he's got some. Marco, his wife, sounds like she does really beautiful food. They're from Italy, and they're from like the Bologna area, so they're very much like, when they come to America, they're like, oh God, the Thai food here sucks. Yeah, I get it. But rolling that pasta out, man, it's like, you really got to roll it and roll it. And like, so those of you who know me, we talked about it before. There's that guy, Evan Funke, right? That chef in California, Los Angeles, who's kind of known as the Sfolia of America. Basically, he's the guy that makes all the pasta. Out of 300 types of pasta, he can do like 185 of them, all hand rolled, hand formed. And he talks about this thing called the mattarello, and it's a 40-inch rolling pin, essentially, right? 2 inches thick and 40 inches long. And I've got this rolling pin that's 2 inches wide, 2 inches thick, that's probably this wide, maybe 20 inches. And yeah, now that I've been doing it, yeah, I see why you need that. Because in order to get the thinness at the size, like, you really do need it. Like, the reason that I can't get it thinner is because basically I'm reaching the outer limits of the rolling pin that I have. Like, I can't get any wider because it'll exceed the size of the pin. So I really need to find this larger pin to do it with. So Tony says, don't cook it a lot, and tomatoes, onions, red wine, and a few herbs. And I had a lesson. Yes, yes. Oh, you're going to San Diego for Thanksgiving again? Good, good. When do you leave, and when do you return? San Diego, that's a nice town. I like it out there. The last time I was there, a couple years back, I was thinking about rolling down to Tijuana. But then you see the border reports, and it's like, my God, man, there's just so much traffic to get back. I was like, I don't want to waste that much time. Easier just to fly to Mexico City. But I do have a good buddy of mine that lives in Tijuana. And he was like, man, if you ever come to Tijuana, let me know. We'll go out and do things. I was like, oh, I really should go down and visit. Although I do hear we can go to Mexico. Like I know some people that have gone to Mexico during this whole pandemic thing. Okay, leave on Tuesday, back on the 2nd. Okay, good, good. All right, let's plan on that. So the cigar is still doing well. The flavor hasn't changed. You know, it's still that cereal, grain, a little bit of black pepper. But the draw's been good. The smoke has been copious. It's going a lot faster than last week's cigar, the farce. So did any of you guys get the iPhone 12? I've seen some people online on YouTube talking about it, and they seem to have got really great results from especially the camera part of it. There's one guy that I follow, Potato Jet. He took it surfing. It's got the IP68 rating, which is water resistant to 6 meters. Although when he did come out of the water from surfing with it, he did find that it wouldn't charge right away because it was still a bit wet, and the speaker had a little bit of garbling for a little while, but it did all dry up and clear up. I'm a little bit dubious on the IP ratings of Apple because I took this phone, the X, the 10, and I took this into my cousin's pool over the summer, and this has an IP67 rating, which is supposed to be water resistant to 3 meters. And I was always on the surface, and this thing basically died. I had to get the screen replaced and everything on it. That was a bit of a disappointment. So the moral of the story is, no matter what the rating is, don't use it in the water. It costs too darn much to use it in the water. So what's everyone smoking tonight? I haven't heard back. So let me know what you've been smoking tonight. Let me know what you think about it. I'd like to know anything new, anything exciting we should be trying. I still need to go pick up the cigars for the next series of shows. I might do that this weekend. Next week we're going to do the Bolivar, some Bolivar, which I'm still a little bit apprehensive on. Like I'm wondering, like, will it be? I hope it will be good. I'm just wondering, like, will it be just kind of one of those, big four cigars, just kind of like nice, decent, but nothing too exciting. Maybe according to cigarscore.com, maybe their number 3 rating. But I don't want to have too many preconceived, thoughts on that yet. So George smoked the Tabernacle. Oh, that's good. And now Oliva V. Which size Oliva? Our friend Brian really likes the Oliva V Lancero. That's really a nice one. We're getting to the bitter end. We're getting towards the end, so I better grab a little bit of liquor here. I'm going to stay with the El Dorado 15. This has been a nice, enjoyable rum. The 6x60 Oliva V. That's nice. Oh, that's nice. Do you tend to favor larger ring gauges for cigars, George? I'm not sure if I haven't done too many 60s. This 56 is probably one of the larger ones I've smoked, especially recently. I think I tend to be around 52, 54 for the most part. Like my favorite one is the Revenge, right? The Roma Revenge. I think that's a 52 box pressed. There's such a nice sweet aroma, caramel, vanilla. Yeah, that's nice. I do like the rums. And now Tony's moved on to the Romeo San Andres 3-year-old. Nice. And George says, depends on my mood. Sometimes, yes, Tony has taught me smaller ring gauge. And 55 is the ring gauge, Tony? I've never seen. I don't recall seeing one that's an odd number on the scale. I don't even recall them being even, but 55. That's interesting. So DJ Roaster is asking, can you explain the ring gauges? Yes. So the ring gauges basically are the numbers themselves are based off an inch. So an inch can be broken down into 64 parts. So 1/64th, right? And so basically the 50 means, or like 48 ring gauge means it's 1/48th of an inch. So just slightly under half an inch. 50 would be half an inch. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's not right. 64. 32 would be half an inch. 32 is half an inch. 50, I think, is probably close to 3/4 of an inch in diameter, right? So when you see the numbers like 5x52, that's 5 inches long by 52 ring gauge. So 64 ring gauge is a full inch. So Georgia's 60 ring gauge is just, I guess that would be 7/8 of an inch. Is that right? So so for DG, what the larger the ring gauge, the more filler tobacco. So cigars are basically comprised of filler tobacco that are inside, and they can be bunched in two different ways. I think they're just bunched, rolled, and I think they're what is it, Tony? They're folded, and there's one called entubado where each of the filler tobaccos are kind of rolled and then bunched together, and then those bunches are taken and they're rolled together with a binder wrapper, and that binder basically binds the filler tobacco, and those are placed in a mold that are, there's actually wooden or plastic molds that give the cigar their shape. So they're placed in the mold, and then the molds are pressed in a press for several days. That gives it the full shape. Once that's pressed together after several days, then they take them out of the mold, and then they'll put the wrapper leaf over it, and that's pretty much the finished cigar. the larger the ring gauge, the more filler tobacco. So the thinner the ring gauge, like let's say if they're 38s, which are more like a Lancero, a lot of like cigar smokers like the Lancero, a lot of the more, I guess, connoisseur cigar smokers like the smaller ring gauge because the ratio of filler tobacco to the wrapper is the ratio of the wrapper to the filler is greater. So you get more of the, so that when you have a really nice wrapper, you get a lot more of that wrapper character as opposed to the filler. A lot of times, a lot of filler tobaccos just tend to be, I guess, a little more benign. So the larger cigars tend to have, I guess, less dynamism than the smaller sizes of that line. Now, of course, I believe the basic practice is that the person that's actually blending the cigars, they blend it to a particular size, let's say like a Robusto or maybe a Toro. They'll develop the components to that particular size and then expand or contract upon it depending on the size. I believe that's how they put it all together. And Tony concurs with that. And so Tony says the whole series, Revenge, Goodness, Lord Humongous, and the new Whiskey Rebellion, all 5x5 and 55. Yes. That new Whiskey Rebellion box press that Skip posted about just the last day or so. I'm really interested to try that. Now, tell me what it is if I'm right. So the Intemperance of Roma has two lines. I believe on the Intemperance, the fill and binder are the same on all the Intemperance. The difference between the two Intemperances is the EC has the Ecuadorian Connecticut wrapper, and then the BA has the Brazil Auto Paraca wrapper, which is the one that I tend to favor. And the Whiskey Rebellion is using, is that Pennsylvania Broad? Is that correct? And George saying, I only smoke certain cigars at 60. Ones that I've had really good results with, only 5 blend I smoke at 60. Oh, okay. What are the other ones you enjoy at 60? Might have to give those a try. I had a brief time where I was doing a lot more Lanceros in the 38 to 42 ring gauge. They're a lot harder to come by because Lanceros aren't terribly popular, so not too many people make them. Like this one that I really enjoyed was the Blue Label. There was a Blue Label by Abe Flores, not the box press Siri Privado, but there was the other Blue Label that they make, the 1875, I think it's called. And I remember I was at an event with Abe in Hawaii that Marvin was putting together, and I asked Abe, hey man, which one should I try? He's like, get this box of Lanceros. And I was like, he's like, we're discontinuing the line. We're discontinuing that size. And this particular cigar was rolled 3 years ago, 3 years prior. So I was like, oh man, okay. That was really a great cigar. Those are long gone. I think I smoked the last one last year or within the last year or so. So Tony's saying the Whiskey Rebellion is Ecuadorian Habano, sun-grown. Okay. My personal wish is that I wish the cigar manufacturers were a little bit more open with their disclosures on the cigars, the tobaccos that they're using in their blends, because after seeing their production and how they do it, it reminds me of the coffee world where, coffee people, they also like to protect their blends. And I kind of take an opposite approach where, if you look at our packaging for the coffees, we pretty much disclose just about everything. The farm, the farmer. If we're doing blends, we talk about the blends, we talk about the processing, we talk about the aging, everything about the coffee. And I think that just gives a lot more for those that are interested. I think it gives a lot more appreciation to the product. And and I get it why a lot of people are protective of their of their blends because they they're worried about people copying them. But I also think that if you look at the processing of tobacco, sure, I could tell you that this is Ecuadorian Habano, this is, and the filler is X, Y, and Z, and be very specific about that. But in order for you to copy that, you would have to be able to actually get the same exact tobaccos that I'd be using in the blend in order to recreate that cigar. But I don't think, especially those companies that are controlling a lot of their what they call pre-industry, which is the fermentation of the tobacco. I mean, they control that aspect of it. So you would have to be that deep into it in order to recreate it. And I think that's just very difficult. So I don't know if it's even be worth it for people to try to copy that. So George saying, so in the 60 ring gauge, like Padron 7000, Perdomo 10th and 20th anniversary, the Oliva V, and the AJ San Latano. Okay. Well, I'll have to give those a try. I haven't really done a 60 ring gauge in quite a long time. And Tony says, if you want the tobacco specifics, check out the stuff in Cigar Culture. Oh, I'll have to check them out. I'm not familiar with Cigar Culture. Let's see what Cigar Culture is all about. Is that a website? Is that the Cigar Culture on Facebook? Let's see. So, DG Rooster, are you smoking cigars with us tonight? Or if you are, let me know what you're smoking or what you're drinking. I'd like to know. Very interested to hear about that. Oh, there's quite an attractive girl on the front page of Cigar Culture. So this one, the Plasencia Reserva Cortez, we're getting really towards the end of it, and it's still static on that nice cereal graininess with a little bit of peppers. It's been pretty much the same way throughout the entire cigar. The draw is still very good. Smoke is still quite copious. We only had to relight it once. DG says, I've been meaning to catch a session tonight. So I'm glad you got to catch up with us tonight. Every Thursday night, 8 o'clock. So, next week we're going to do the Boulevard. What are we doing? The Boulevard something. Let me see if I can pull it. Now I got to pull it up in I have my notes up here. Let me see. Somewhere along the way, it'll come up. My old computer is running pretty slowly now. So speaking of pies earlier, have you guys had the Smith Island cake? I went down to Chrisfield last Friday to the Smith Island Bakery to go check it out because I've had Smith Island cake from different places here in Baltimore, but I wanted to really get to the origin of it. So I went down to Chrisfield, bought a cake. They're actually having a special right now. So the large cakes are normally $78, but they're selling the original cake, the yellow with a fudge frosting, for $44. I don't know if that's still going on, but you should call them up. It's really quite good. I'm actually got a video I'm working on for the channel. And so basically, the Smith Island cake is basically thin layers of yellow cake with chocolate fudge frosting. And so there's actually 8 layers. So they're about this thick, and it's 8 stacked. It's really, if you like chocolate cake, it's basically the best way to have it because there's much more better ratio of cake to frosting. So next week we're doing the Boulevard Cofradia Robusto. And so that's what's coming for next week. So if you have a chance to get that for next week, and we'll all smoke it together. So Tony says I had blend number 3 that I found at a shop in Allentown when Brian and I went traveling. So the number 3. Oh, also the PDR label is the Sunworm. So you say blend number 3, which is of which cigar line is that blend number 3? So now I'm pinching it. We're getting really close to the end. Still good. It's getting a little bit of bitterness now because we're really getting to the bitter end. Oh, Cigar Culture is actually a cigar. Is that correct? Okay. I've not heard of Cigar Culture as a cigar. Oh, interesting. Let's see. Cigar Culture. Cigar. Wait, blend 3. There it is. Cigar Culture releasing blend culture blend number 3 from Half Wheel. Oh, so it's a brand new one then. Okay. Oh, well, that looks interesting. Okay, so they're re-releasing the Culture Blend number 3. Oh, so Cigar Culture is a popular lifestyle Instagram account. And it's a 6x50 Toro using an Ecuadorian Habano 2000 wrapper over Dominican Olor binder from the 214 crop in Villa Gonzales. Oh, here we are. You're right. They're totally releasing everything about it. So the fillers in this blend number 3 is a Dominican Criollo 98, La Canela 2015, a Dominican Piloto Cubano from Mao 2015, Dominican San Vicente Penuela 2015, Dominican San Vicente Mejorado 2014, Nicaraguan Criollo 98 Condega 2015. Oh, Condega. So Condega. So, okay, so I'm guessing then that on these listings of the different tobaccos, when they say La Canela, Mao, Penuela, Mejorado, and Condega, because Condega is actually a place in Nicaragua. That must be where they're actually grown. And it's made by Tabacalera El Puente. Oh. A shop in Allentown. Oh. Might have to go up there and check it out. So in this Half Wheel article says that Adrian Acosta of the Cigar Culture, took over 60 blends to create this release, which kind of goes, I wonder if it goes back to that whole Mil Diaz thing, 1,000 days. So if you're doing 60 blends, I mean, 3 years to maybe, that might take you 3 years to blend it. That makes sense. So Acosta said it takes 60 blends to create this release. He added that if a second production run were to happen, it would be at least 5 years because they would have to age the tobacco. Interesting. So how did that turn out, Tony? I'm really sucking this down now. Like I'm just really pinching it, this very little corner. So like we talk about every show, it's like, is this a cigar that I would buy again? I think I would go along with the with what did they say? What was that? What Cigar Score says is with their 3, it's that it's a fair, not special. I would say it's better than fair. I think it's good. I'd probably smoke it again. Like it says, smoke it again if the go-tos weren't available. Yeah, it would be a good substitute again. And like they all noted, if you wanted to have a nice morning cigar that's quite enjoyable with coffee, this would be a good choice, I think. Again, I think a more chocolatey, robust coffee would be better paired with this than this more bright, lighter acidity coffee that I'm drinking now. And it's interesting, like Plasencia, I don't know if you've seen it, they also make a line called the Almafuerte, which is a more robust, full-flavored cigar. I tried one once when I was down in around Dulles and Leesburg. Our friend Alex has a shop there now, and he was, showing it to me. I was going on a trip to Europe or something like that, or Africa, and I got there a few hours. Oh, I had my flight was delayed by a few hours, so I had a couple hours to burn. So I went over to Alex's shop and hung out with him, and I tried that Almafuerte there, and it's pretty pricey. It's like $21, I think, for the cigar, but it was really, really good, really, really good. Like pricey enough that I don't know if I would like. I haven't bought one since that time because it's quite pricey, but it was really good. So Tony says the blend number 3 is very good. He would buy more, but I enjoyed the Mil Diaz Corona Gorda more. Yeah, there's definitely something special. That Mil Diaz, definitely. Oh, now I'm burning my lips. All right, that's enough. That was a nice smoke. Enjoyable. Need some water. Now. Water. I got my fancy Riedel water glass. I found this at the wine source. It's like $7. It's a Riedel glass. The guys that make the wine, the really like nice wine glasses. So it's super thin. Look at that edge. It's super thin. I'm gonna get some of this water here. I found this Waiakea water, and it's called Hawaiian volcanic water from Hilo, I believe. Yeah, from Hilo. And it reminds me of the Fiji water. And I remember when the Fiji water came out in the 90s, the cigar shop that we hung out in back then got it in originally. It was talking about artisan well water. Made it sound super fancy, super fancy. Like the rainwater filters through the volcanic rock and into the aquifers, and then they pull it out. Really, really sounds great. And Fiji water is quite enjoyable, as is this Waiakea. But the thing that I kind of got a chuckle out of is that when living in Honolulu, that's basically our tap water. So, we're this Vaicea as well as the Fiji is basically Pacific tap water, because the only water available in Hawaii, and I guess in Fiji, is from artesian wells. All right, well, I guess that's it for this week. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you guys taking the time, as always. Next week is going to be that Bolivar Cofradia Robusto. I have no idea what Cofradia means. I really should look that up before next week, but I probably won't. Yeah, and then after that it's Thanksgiving. Gosh, 2 weeks of Thanksgiving. When my sister-in-law was like, "Hey, what are we doing for Thanksgiving?" I was like, "Oh, I hadn't even thought about how close we are to Thanksgiving." But it really is right around the corner. So we'll be back again next week, 8 o'clock on Thursday. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, and I hope it's going to be a great week for you guys. And if you decide that you're going to, where's my thing here? If you decide that you're going to try MeWe or Parlor, let me know how it turns out, because I'm interested to know at least what's going on over there. I'm probably not going to join myself, because already there's too much social media going on in my life. But yeah, that's it. Thanks very much. Have a great week. See you next time. Oh, that didn't go smoothly. Ciao. Oh, did that work? It didn't work. Come on.